The first door appeared on the side of a laundromat that had been closed for years, its windows papered over in sun-faded flyers, and its metal gate permanently rusted into place. No one saw Cathy draw it. No one ever did. They only noticed it later. A clean rectangle in white chalk, a handle sketched with careful detail, a faint suggestion of hinges. It didn't belong to the building. It didn't match the decay around it. It looked placed. By morning, someone had taken a picture. By afternoon, it was on social media. By evening, it already started to fade beneath curious hands and the slow, indifferent smear of passing weather. Cathy didn't go back to that one. She never did. She chose her locations carefully, though she couldn't explain if someone had asked. A cracked alley behind a bar in Grit Row, the concrete support of an overpass where the air always smelled faintly of iron, the side of an abandoned townhouse near the edge of the Sanctum district, where the streetlights flickered even when they were new. She worked at dusk, when the light softened just enough to hide her from anyone who might care to notice. Straight lines, even corners, the faintest shading along the edges to suggest depth. Always a handle, implying it could be opened. Her chalk constantly moved, like she wasn't inventing the doors so much as remembering them, and that was the important part. At first, she told herself it was just art, something to break the monotony of a town that felt like it was always watching itself too closely. It wasn't until the third door that she started to feel the wrongness. She drew it on the side of a narrow brick building that backed up against an alley no one used anymore. The bricks there were darker than the rest, stained by something she didn't want to think too hard about. The air felt heavier in that place, like it had forgotten how to move. When she finished, she stepped back and looked at it, tilting her head slightly the way she always did when judging her work. For a moment, just a moment, it looked real. The chalk lines seemed to sink into the brick instead of sitting on top of it. The handle caught what little light there was and held it. Cathy blinked, and it was just chalk again. She told herself she was tired, that she'd been out too late, too many nights in a row, and her imagination always had a habit of getting away from her. Still, when she turned to leave, she felt something behind her. She didn't look back. After that, she started bringing a sketchbook with her. It wasn't part of the plan at first. She'd always preferred working large, working in spaces where the world itself became the canvas. But something about the doors started to linger in her thoughts, so she began to draw them again, smaller this time, capturing each one on paper after she'd finished it in chalk. Same lines, same proportions, same careful attention to the details that made them feel like they could open. She didn't show the drawings to anyone. They were just for her, and that's what she told herself. One afternoon, she sat on the edge of her bed and flipped through the sketchbook. The pages rustled softly beneath her fingers, and when she reached the page with the third door, the one in the alley, she paused. The handle was different. Not dramatically, just not enough that anyone else to notice. But Cathy knew her lines. She knew the way her hand moved, and she knew she hadn't drawn it like that. She stared at the page longer than she meant to, until she finally closed it and set the sketchbook aside. She didn't draw that night, and the next morning she told herself she'd imagined it. Artists change things all the time without realizing it. A line here, a curve there. By the time the sun dipped low again, she convinced herself enough to go back out. The fourth door went up near the edge of Monroe Bay, where the streets thinned and the buildings gave way to long stretches of empty lots and half-finished developments. She took her time with this one. More detail, more shading. When she finished, she hesitated, then reached out and tapped the drawn handle with her fingers. The chalk left a faint dusting on her skin. "See?" she murmured to herself. "It's nothing." She turned and walked away, but that night she couldn't sleep because the feeling came back stronger. She heard a repetitive yet soft A sound. She pushed herself up slowly. The room was dark, except for the faint glow of streetlight filtering through the curtains. She heard it again. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It was coming from inside her room. Her gaze shifted, drawn unwillingly to the opened sketchbook on the desk. She didn't remember leaving it that way. For a long moment, she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. It was the fourth door. "No," she whispered. The page slowly darkened, and the faint shading she added along the edge stretched inward to the doorway. The scraping sound grew louder, and line that marked the door's edge bulged. For a single, impossible second, it pushed outward, as if the paper itself were trying to give way. Then it opened slightly, revealing a thin sliver of something beyond. Then a long, pale hand pushed against the edge of the door, forcing it wider. The paper stretched without tearing. In its hand was a piece of paper that she quickly recognized, one of her drawings, and the lines on that paper shifted. "No," she whispered to herself while she watched the door open further. Another hand holding a piece of chalk and paper. Cathy continued to watch as something on the other side of the door drew a door of its own, and that door opened with another hand holding more chalk and paper. As the process repeated itself, Cathy understood what she had done. She wasn't just drawing simple doors. These were doors to other dimensions, and she had been showing something how to come through.